You are listening to the Budget Divas podcast with your host, Jen Trinidad. In this podcast, we discuss real-life money strategies that you can implement without sacrificing your social life or living on a beans and rice budget. It is possible to live happily while on a debt-free journey and enjoy the shiny objects in life. Welcome to another episode of the Budget Divas podcast. I am your host, Jen Trinidad, and I'm so excited because today my guest is Christine Schwartz of RVMamaOf4. Christine's goal is to help women gain the confidence, knowledge, and skills needed to purchase or rent, drive, and set up their RV from start to finish. Christine's desire is to create the life you desire by connecting with nature, spending quality time with your kids or pets without the distractions of a busy life, and engaging in sightseeing activities that you normally don't have the opportunity to do. Christine helps women who want to get out there and experience the beauty of the outdoors in a unique way in an RV, so you can make memories that last a lifetime, 1 mile at a time. When I heard what Christine was doing, I knew I had to have her on the podcast to talk to us about how to RV on our own and on a budget. It has always been a dream of mine to rent an RV, and hey, probably an MTV Cribs RV, because why not? Drive cross country with my husband and eat the local food in every state we come across. Even better, we could even mystery shop in these states and get paid along the way. I hope you are as excited for this episode as I am. Now, let's welcome Christine to the show. Welcome, Christine, to the Budget Diva Show. Thank you so much for being here. Tell us more about you and what you're all about.
Hey, I'm Christine Schwartz, and I'm the RV Mama of 4, and I love to help women learn how to RV solo or with their kids. I'm passionate about RVing. I've been doing it for the last 8 years alone with my kids because my husband does not like to camp. He likes to have the perfect mattress and I count about 6 pillows. And if it's not exactly right, he doesn't love it. So instead of waiting for him and his schedule, we have just literally hit the road in the RV and learned through trial and error.
I am so excited for today's podcast because this is something that I've been wanting to do for years and just never really looked into it. I mean, living in Hawaii, you can't RV anywhere. Where are you going to RV around the island? And so one of my goals next year is to save enough money to go RVing, maybe across country or just starting with a couple of states. And so I really wanted to dive deep into your story of how you got started and the tips that you have for our viewers today on how they can get started as well. But first of all, tell us, you told us a little bit about your story. Tell us how you decided to start RVing.
So it all started 8 years ago, and I'm one of 4 kids, and I have 4 kids, and we had grown up tent camping. So I have a lot of memories camping. We had a 13-person tent that I think my parents finally gave to the missionaries. That tent is probably 40 years old, and it leaked every time. I would always sleep on the edge, and I'd get wet. But we probably camped at least once a month, like my entire childhood. And the highlight of it was that we got to stay in a cabin when we would usually only go maybe once a year where we get to stay in the cabin. The rest of the time it was a tent. So I'll never forget the day I was talking to my sister and she was like, oh yeah, we're going to actually buy an RV. And we lived in Texas at the time. And I was like, what? An RV? How are you going to afford that? And she's like, no, really, it's not that expensive. She goes, it's only like $150 a month. And I'm thinking that's like dinner out for 6 in Texas, like I could do that and give up a dinner once a month and I can go make memories with the kids. And so little bit of competitiveness with the sisters going on. And I thought, well, I need an RV too if she has an RV. And I knew nothing about it. Like I said, we grew up tent camping. And so I ended up talking to my husband and I said, I think this would be so fun for the family. I think we could afford it in the budget based on what my sister told me. And I said, you know what we could do? Because my daughter danced. I said, we could go and travel to her different dance competitions and save money because we could spend the night and we wouldn't have to get up at 5 a.m. and we wouldn't have to stay at a hotel. And my husband generally will do what I suggest. So he said, okay, if that's what you want. And so literally the next day well, let's go look at them, while I got him to agree. So we went and we looked at RVs, and generally I looked at them, and then I showed him one that I had found that I wanted to buy. He said, just narrow it down to 2. He does this with houses too. He said, just narrow it down to 2. I don't want to go look at all this. So we narrowed it down, and we ended up finding one for only $16,000. The payment was about $150. So it was very budget conscious. And I ended up negotiating it by myself. And we ended up picking up that RV probably 2 weeks later with just a walkthrough and a tour. And it took about 2 hours for them to go through everything. And as soon as you leave the parking lot, you're like, oh my gosh, forgot everything they said. So that was kind of where we started. And that was 8 years ago. I kept that trailer until we basically broke or learned everything there was to break or learn. And then I said, okay, it's kind of like your first car, right? I said, okay, I'm ready for like a new RV, because that was a used RV. I'm ready for a new one. I got this down. So we get a new RV. The first one we called Breakdown Betsy, because we broke everything. The second one we called S'mores, because it's cute and we love campfire and s'mores. And I still have that one. It's still in great shape, but I do have a funny story about it. Right when you think you know everything, right? So we lived in the country in Colorado now, and we had this super long driveway that with Breakdown Betsy, I could literally pull into my driveway, do a turn with my, super long truck, 32-foot trailer. I could literally make a U-turn in my driveway and be facing to leave. Well, this trailer, the new one, was 35 feet. I ended up hitting my own truck an hour after we purchased my brand new trailer in my driveway. I'm crying. The kids are yelling at me. My husband's not even home yet. He literally was still driving home from the dealer. And I was like, but you know what? The good news was, I feel like we call them camping angels. And I feel like our camping angels watched over us, because I still have that dent. It was in the, there's like a V connector that connects your trailer to your truck, and it just dented it. It didn't hurt my truck. It didn't hurt the trailer. It's just the V. It still has a dent to this day, but that was pretty much it as far as s'mores went. That was my last lesson I had to really learn of breaking something. So that was how we bought our second RV, and I negotiated that one on my own as well with a toddler in tow. That was fun. He was coloring on the ground, and you lose a little negotiating power when you have kids coloring on the ground, but I was determined. So we did that. And then I guess I missed a spot of the story. Before I got my second one, I wasn't really that comfortable driving it by myself. I tried it one time. It was a little scary, so I didn't try it again. And so my husband in Texas would come to every campground, set up the RV, drive the RV, and go home, because he's a lawyer and he always had to work on weekends. And I felt really guilty. I was like, this is kind of not, we're boating and going to Lake Conroe and having fun and doing all this stuff, and he's spending all this time and then just leaving. So that was my motivation to get that second trailer and to really launch out on my own and realize I have to learn how to RV on my own. I want to be on my own schedule. I want to take the kids to other states outside of Texas. I wanted to go to dance scholarships for my daughter in Utah and Vegas and California, and I couldn't do any of that on his schedule. So that was my kick in the pants of, all right, put that fear behind you. You can do this. You can get out there and RV on your own.
It's so funny that you say that you grew up tent camping. I am not a tent camp girl at all. Even when my son was going to camp for church, they would call it glamping. Because, right, they would go to, a campsite where they had cabins and they had like a full buffet and everything was taken care for them. They didn't need to be fighting on their own, grabbing their fish from the ocean kind of thing. And so what really attracted me to RVing is like, oh, I could travel the country, not have to stay in these ghetto motels, right? But then also have like privacy and then be able to be in a place that I can call home while we're on the road. It's not like being in a car and you're stuck in it for, 2 to 3 hours and you need to stretch and so forth. So I think it's so fascinating with this RV life. And I know you're also a mom who homeschools, which is cool too, because then you don't have to go according to the school schedule of when you want to take your kids places. You can do this on your own time. And, during those winter seasons when it's really, really cold, you can travel across the country to somewhere that it's warmer.
Yeah, it's so true. So I've been homeschooling since my 16-year-old was in fifth grade. So however many years that is, I've kind of lost track, but a lot of years, over 5. And it actually came in handy for both homeschooling and RVing when COVID hit. And I know that nobody likes to talk about COVID. We're all trying to put that behind us, but we had the best experience of our life that my kids will never forget. So we had sold our house, the one I was telling you about, with the long driveway and the 5 acres, to move closer into dance and my husband's job. We ended up closing on that house about February 28th, and the entire country shut down on March 15th, 23rd. I remember because it was my son's birthday. So we were only 2 weeks into like the house hunt of looking for a house when we found out that you couldn't even do open houses in Colorado anymore. If you wanted a house, you had to just look at it online. That was it. It was done. And I thought, I am not buying a house online that I have not seen. And so I told my husband, he said, well, where are we going to live? We don't have a house. We just closed on it. And I said, I'm going to go take the RV. And I said, honey, I know you don't like camping, so I don't know what you're going to do. No, I didn't quite phrase it like that. But he stayed behind at his mom's house, and he had to work anyway, so he couldn't go that far. But I drove the kids down to Colorado Springs. It's about 45 minutes from here. And we stayed at a KOA for a month. And they called us full-timers because we were getting the monthly rate. It was about $850 at that KOA. So that since we didn't have a house payment, it really wasn't that bad at that point. And we just cried at night over everything that was lost and lived it up during the day. It was so many mixed emotions because since I already homeschooled, we were able to just transition our school like nothing had happened. Like they didn't get science, that, experiments. That was, like our homeschool transition was so seamless because we already did it. And then at night, it was just like everybody, the dance competitions, the baseball, everything that was canceled. But I thought, we're not going to let us get this down. We're not going to let us hold this back. We're going to follow the rules, but we're going to get out there and explore. So there was a state park right near that KOA, and we went biking, we went hiking. We had so many stories. One time there was a snake on the trail in between the kids and I, and we didn't know what to do. I'm like, how do I get to the kids? There's a snake in between us. Like just story after story after story. And after a month, I told my husband, I said, I want to keep doing this. Like COVID is still here. It's getting worse. We can't buy a house still because the market's shut. So we went down to Canyon City, Colorado for 2 months, just the kids and I. We finally got water, because my RV was winterized. I know you guys won't have that problem in Hawaii, but I had no water the entire month. So we had to use a camping potty or the campground potty. We had to use the showers there. We had to do our dishes in their outside kitchen. And so you'd think that living without water for a month would be difficult, but it was just part of the experience. It was fun. But when I did get water a month later, it was literally like Christmas. I'm like, I have water and a toilet and a shower. So we stayed there for 2 months. We met so many friends. Every night we'd gather around the campground with our 10 people. Sometimes we had like plus 2 extra, but generally around the 10, in the rules. And they shut down the campground to new people coming in. So we really just felt like family. And every day we went off-road jeeping. We didn't have internet. We didn't have GPS because it just didn't work. We were in the middle of nowhere. I bought a separate phone plan for my daughter so she could take dance. And she did it outside in a pavilion. I bought a rubber shower mat, and I would roll it out every day, and she'd do her dance on the rubber shower mat. I'd tape it down, and then we'd roll it back up, and people would be like, Amanda, where are you? Because there's mountains behind her with snow. And like, if it was dark, I'd take my truck and I'd turn the headlights on, and I would aim it at her rubber shower mat, and people would be like, oh, you look like you're like, and I'm thinking if they ever saw behind the scenes of what we did to let this girl dance. But Jen, like, the memories that my kids have during COVID are jeeping, Segway riding. We went ATV riding because all that stuff was open in the mountains. You just had to wear, like we were the only ones there. And they'd say, wear a mask and rent your own Segway, rent your own ATV, whatever. So it was just an experience that I never could have done if I didn't know how to RV on my own, ever. I think my husband came to visit us like twice. And then we always had to come back home to visit him.
That is such a great story. And especially during COVID time when we were all locked up in the house and we couldn't go anywhere and we couldn't see our family members. I remember my husband and I just driving around the island for hours and hours just because we needed to get out. And at the time, the beaches were closed. you go to the beach, but you couldn't sit on the beach or you had to stay in the water. And sometimes it was cold. So we just had the best time just driving around the island, having like a couch talk, like instead of a couch, it was like in a car, making memories together. And I love the part that you said that you didn't have any internet, because this thing in my hand right now is like addicting, right? Like I'm always looking at my phone. And when you don't have that privilege, obviously you didn't have that privilege because you were out in the mountains, but then you're forced to do things outdoors, but then you get to know your family members and your friends around you on a personal level that you can't do when you are stuck to your technology devices.
Right. It was such a blessing, and it was a little scary at times. My daughter always said that we were going to be on some show that she named like Lost and Alive. She came up with that name because we would do our schoolwork and then we would off-road for about 4 hours a day. Because in Canyon City, there are just trails and you just go get lost. You don't even know where the roads will lead. Like they're dirt roads. We went and saw this camel safari guy that literally learned how to be a safari guy on YouTube, and he had buffalo running around, and we were so scared we were running into his golf cart. We're like, you need to stay with us because we can't walk around with these buffalo. I think he ended up going out of business because I don't think he knew what he was doing, but we ended up driving all around with him, and the kids just got these experiences that were just crazy. And we would have campfires in the national forest where it was permitted. We found old mines. We were kind of afraid that like bombs were going to go off or something. Like we just saw things that we never knew were back there. We would follow friends of ours that were true off-road jeepers. And we found this place called Buckskin Joe's that used to exist when I was a kid, and it went out of business and it's just like crumbled apart. And we found it, and we were able to get back there and find old railroad tracks and pick up nails. And I mean, it was just an incredible experience, but the no technology was a little scary because if anything went wrong, I had no way to reach anyone. And I had no GPS, so we never knew where we would end up. I was okay with that, but my kids were kind of freaked out. If I'm telling the truth, they'd be like, Mom, you always take us down these roads. And we'd be like on two wheels and rocks and trees are like hitting the back of my truck. And I'm like, we're fine. And I loved it, but they were a little scared. And one time we drove for like an hour and we found a rock quarry, and it said it had like minerals and gems, and you had to have a permit to go in. And then it was a dead end, and there was this fence and you couldn't get past, and we had just driven an hour, and I was like, oh, we're gonna have to turn and go back. The kids were mad, but all the other days the roads would just end up somewhere. And I'm like, during COVID, it didn't matter where you came out. Like as long as you came out somewhere and I could generally figure out where we were fine. And then we just would make it back to dance at 6:00, But the other funny story about not having any technology, really, some days texting would work, some days phone calls would work, and that was it. We couldn't get TV, and some days it didn't work. I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know if it was based on how many other people were trying or what, but I really didn't know what was going on in the world, and that kind of helped until I would go home and visit, but that kind of helped me. I still remember when everything happened with the BLM movement. Well, in camping terms, BLM stands for Bureau of Land Management, and it means you get free 14 days of camping anywhere. So when I heard somebody mention that, I was like, oh my gosh, you know about BLMs? I'm like, I'm so excited. And they just looked at me like I was crazy. And I had to ask my dad what it was. I'm like, Dad, what is a BLM? Like in my world, it's Bureau of Land Management. And we'll never forget that story to this day. He's like, I cannot believe like you literally were that detached from society that you thought everybody was talking about camping. I'm like, I'm sorry. So yeah, when we went to get back into the real world, it's just like you're saying, it's a constant addiction and difficult. When we go camping, I tell my kids, no phones, keep them in the car. You can have them the whole time there, however far away it is, because I'm driving and I can't stop you anyway. But when we get there, no, put them away. I don't even want to see them. I don't even hook up the TV. I don't even tell the kids that we have a cable cord. I don't think I've ever used it in 8 years, but maybe once. So it's just fun to escape from it.
Yeah.
You get to be a kid again.
Yes, my husband and I were just talking about that yesterday, and I was asking him, what is your favorite memory, or what is your earliest memory as a child? And he's like, I remember just being in the yard, running around naked, being free, and, climbing up in the mountains and going underneath the house and just having so much fun. And then when you get to be an adult, everything changes, right? You have so many things blocking in your head. nowadays. And when you were talking about the cell phones, it just reminded me, like, even in the grocery store, right? If I can't find my husband, I'm like just texting him, like, where are you? Where do I meet you? Right? Because like before we had cell phones, when we would go to the grocery store with my dad, I would have to listen for his keys jingling on his belt. And that's how I could find him in the store.
That's so funny. And that memory of that specific thing too. Yeah, like the keys was how you found him. Yeah, we've had so many different opportunities. So after that, I was like, oh, I got to do this all the time. And so the last 2 winters, we actually did what was called a stay and play in Breckenridge, Colorado, which is a big ski resort for anyone that doesn't know. And I was able to go pick a spot, and I picked one right near the bathhouse because they had a kitchen, a bathhouse, and a toilet. Because again, we're winterized. You don't have that in the winter in Colorado. In warm states, you do, but Texas, Arizona, Hawaii, you would, but not where we are. So it was called a stay and play, and we were able to go pick a spot, set up the RV like you were camping there all the time, and then you could come up to 8 times a month from October to April. So we would literally go up several times a month to go skiing, and the way that we kept it within our budget is up through 5th grade, your kids get free ski passes in Colorado. So they can ski in all these different places that they tell you. Breckenridge was one of them, Keystone, Vail, Beaver Creek. And we used almost every day of it. And so we would stay at the RV. It was only $300 a month, that's the price of like an Airbnb for 1 or 2 nights in those ski towns. And I could do it up to 8 times a month. And all I had to do was come in. There's a little red key. It's called the battery disconnect switch. Turn it on, turn my heat on, and that's it. Everything else was ready to go. Turn my propane on. And that was it. We kept clothes up there. We kept our ski stuff. We skied all the time. We had such a fun time because, again, it was a mountain town with a bunch of hillbillies and because we were outside of Breckenridge. Breckenridge is not like that. But our RV was in Fairplay, which was 20 minutes outside. And it's kind of how you would imagine a mountain town to be. And then we would just go in the morning, go skiing with our free passes that they extended because of COVID. So we got them like 2 extra years. And we did that for 2 years and for $300 a month. So we're really able, I'm really conscious like you are of budget so that we can travel a lot. I want to travel a lot. I want to make memories a lot. I want to be on my own schedule, but money is not unlimited. It's a definite issue and something I have to be aware of. And so there's a lot of tricks and things that you can do like that. And he chose the families that got stay and play. So I always stayed on his good terms. I'd always tell him, thank you. You do a great job at, being a camp host and things like that.
This is so fascinating to me. And I'm sure our audience is on the edge of their seats right now, wondering how they can start doing this as well. And for someone who lives in Hawaii, when we travel, we just travel by car. And I remember being a kid traveling from California all the way up to Canada. And it was horrible because you're stuck in the car for like sometimes 3 to 4 hours at a time. No cell phones. You have your snacks and you have your games with you. But this whole world of RVing is so new to me. So for our audience out there that is wondering, how do I get started? Even let's just talk about renting an RV, not even buying an RV. But if they're wanting to rent an RV, how should they get started? Or what do they need to do first to get started?
Yes. So I love when other people are excited about it because I think it opens up the door to so much opportunity. And you can really budget and plan whether you're renting, buying, full-timing, or just going over the summer. So I wrote down a couple things that I just wanted to share. So when you're renting versus buying, one of the things that you really want to ask yourself is how often am I going to go? So if you're going, I would say maybe 2 or 3 times a year, you might want to rent. Or if you really want to see if that lifestyle is something you like, because like you said, if you're in Hawaii or you haven't done it before you just jump in and buy, because it is an investment, it's oftentimes a good idea to rent. But if you're going to go more than 2 to 3 times a year, or this is something you just want to dive in and say, this is a journey I want to take, this is a dream I want to fulfill, I'm ready, let's do it. You can really get and purchase RVs that are on a budget. So for example, Breakdown Betsy, my first RV, was $16,000 and I paid about $150 to $180 a month. My new one, S'mores, I bought for $35,000 and that one, I think my payment's about $250 a month. So it's not like a car. It's spread out longer, not as long as a house, but not as short as a car. My husband kind of handles that part of it. So, but I know generally what it is per month, and I know what we paid because I negotiated it myself. So that's one of the first things you want to consider is which one of those categories do you fall into? If you rent, I actually just had the best opportunity to go to Arizona and rent. I personally own a 35-foot travel trailer and a Dodge Ram 2500 truck. So it is close to 60 feet that I'm pulling when I'm driving between my truck and my trailer. If I did my Colorado math right. But anyway, I decided I'm going to be going to Arizona anyway for my daughter's dance competition. And there's this huge rally and RV show in Quartzsite that was only an hour away. And I thought, I'm going to rent a Class A motorhome because I want to do it. And this is going to be awesome. So I rented a Class A, which if anybody doesn't know, that's just a large motorhome. That's what it stands for. Big motorhome. I rented a 32-foot motorhome, and there's many places that you can do it. If you're just starting out, outdoorsy.com and rvshare.com and then Cruise America are the three biggest. I chose Outdoorsy just because I'm most familiar with that one. And the process was so easy. You go in, you filter your dates, and then you look at prices, and then you look at where you want to go, and it'll show you what's available. And that's how I found this one. And there's even some stars, like Airbnbs have like great value, deal won't last. I got this 32-foot RV for only $150 a night. And that was a good deal. It was a good deal. And it was such an easy process, Jen. Like I literally just clicked, okay, accept, and the offer goes out, whatever, they had written in there. So it wasn't really an offer, but I accepted it. And then he had to write back and accept me, that I wanted to go on those dates. And he did. And then you just communicate with the owner via the Outdoorsy app. And there's a couple things that you really want to be careful of and be aware of when you're looking at those prices. Some people will lowball their price, but then they'll charge you for sheets and towels. I just saw that this morning. Somebody wanted like $250 for linens. And I'm like, what? But they had a really cheap RV. So watch for that. But my owner, also talk to your owner, I would say is my second tip, because I asked him, are linens included? Are towels included? Is it fully stocked? Because I'm literally flying there. I'm not going to be able to have anything but the clothes on my back and my pillow pet because I sleep with pillow pet. I'm like, that's it. And he was so good. He was so responsive. And he said, he was like, yeah, I'm going to include all that. And I said, I'm going to be boondocking, which means if people don't know, that means you have no hookups, no water, no sewer. So you have to come with your tanks fully filled with fresh water. And he said he would empty the sewer tanks when I got back. I didn't have to worry about that. He'd fill my fresh water. You don't have electric, so you're going to need a generator. And you want to make sure your batteries are well charged so they don't die when you're in the middle of the desert. And I told him my whole story of how I was going to be traveling. I was going to be alone. And so he got new batteries for the RV for me. And you also really want to watch to make sure that they don't charge you for extra miles. Some of them will say you can only go so many miles a day, or you can only use the generator so many hours a day. You want to watch for all that when you're evaluating your price to make sure it's within your budget. But he included all of that, threw it all in for extra, even though he said I was going to be charged for that, but he told me he would throw it all in. So get that in writing or send an email back, because we had that on a phone conversation, and just say, thank you so much for agreeing to throw in the extra miles in the generator for free. I really appreciate it. And now it's documented and you don't look like you're being a lawyer. So the rental process was so easy. And I loved having the motorhome because, like you said, I wasn't cramped. I could pull over. I could go to the bathroom. I could make lunch. I could take a nap. I didn't even have to open my slides. I called my husband. I was like, I want a Class A. He goes, you already have an RV. I'm like, nope, I know. I need another one right now. Let's do it. So it was super cool.
Yeah, that is so cool. So what I'm hearing is that it's similar to renting an Airbnb, where you need to look at the fine print, look at what you're getting, contact the owner of the RV, make sure you get everything in writing before you decide to move forward. So that's a great tip. And then also kind of knowing what your price points are and how far you're going to be traveling, if you're going to need a bigger RV or if you're okay with a smaller one. This is a great question. How many people comfortably can live in an RV?
So that is definitely one of the things that you want to consider. Your first step is, do I want to rent or do I want to buy? And you're going to base that on how often you're going to use it. Your second step is, what kind of RV do I want? A travel trailer or do I want a motorhome? A motorhome benefits are kind of like we talked about. If you're going with your family and you're not going alone, somebody can be cooking or going to the bathroom or sleeping while the other person is driving. I always travel with just me and my kids. So that's a perk for them, not so much for me because I'm still driving, but it still is. If I have to go to the bathroom, it's hard to find a spot to pull over. I can't pull into Starbucks and Taco Bell with a 60-foot rake. Whereas I could with a motorhome because you're not pulling something. Whatever you're steering, that's the way it's going. So that is something you want to consider. So if it was just you and your husband, or if it was you and your husband and your son, you could easily get away with either. And your son is older, so you don't have to worry about a bunkhouse. But the third thing you want to consider is, do you have young kids? If you have young kids, a bunkhouse, which is a separate room in the back of your pull behind travel trailer, or in your motorhome, it's often in the hallway. You can have bunk beds. They'll often have TVs. Some of them come with a door, like an actual room. That's what I have. The ones in the motorhomes will usually have a curtain or a sliding door, but they're still in the hallway. So it's a little different setup. So that's something that you want to consider and look into. Fifth wheels. You have to have a certain truck for a fifth wheel. There's a special attachment in the back of your truck that the fifth wheel will attach to and come into the bed of your truck. But if you have a big family, you can get a lot more space with a fifth wheel. And they can go all the way up to 45 feet, plus your truck. We're actually looking at getting one in April. So I love talking about fifth wheels and 45 footers, and it'll be fun to drive. I can't wait. But the other option is, if you're really budget conscious, and that's something that you're looking at, and you have a family, you can get away with a travel trailer like we have, like I said, within the 16 to 32,000 range. You can get more expensive ones up to 50 and 60,000, but it's really, you can fit your budget to any RV that you want to find. And really, it depends if you want a motorhome or a bumper pull. So once you make that decision, you can then work with your budget.
Awesome. Yeah, I just love how you have put so much information together, and now you're serving other people as well. And I'm always the type of person that I would rather pay somebody to hold my hand and walk me through the process versus doing it on my own. So tell us more about RV Mama of 4 and what you're doing with your membership and how you're teaching people how they can do this as well.
So the membership has several components. One of the component is community. When you have a question and you're sitting on the side of the road and you don't know what to do, we just had this happen. For example, we were driving to Albuquerque. We were 20 minutes away from our Harvest Host, which is free camping with a membership. And we can delve into that in another conversation, but it's another budget-friendly way to save on your travel days. We were only 20 minutes away. We were going to the balloon fiesta for the 5th year, I think I've taken my kids, and you have to add that to your bucket list. The Albuquerque Balloon Fiesta, if you haven't gone, is one of the top fun, free things that you can do. It's free. Well, the tickets are real minimal, actually. It's not free, but they're super minimal, like less than a Taco Bell lunch. So you can take your kids there, and we stayed at a Harvest Host. We were 20 minutes away, and my tire fell off. Literally, it was at an angle like this. So it was attached, but it was kind of like a tooth that was hanging off. And so the only way I knew is my truck said brakes disconnected. Not what you want to see when you're 20 minutes away. And I'm like, what? My brakes are disconnected. So we pull over and the tire's just hanging off. The brakes are disconnected. And in those situations, you want to be able to have somebody to call. I have been lucky enough to have my mobile RV repair guy basically on speed dial, as we used to call it growing up. And so I called him first and I said, what do I do? My tire's hanging off. He's in Colorado. I'm in New Mexico. And, he walked me through some situations. I sent him a picture and he's like, yeah, you're going to be stuck until somebody can come and help you. So that's a whole other story of what we ended up doing, but you can actually drive with only 3 wheels. We waited on the side of the road for 5 hours. I couldn't get anybody to come. I ended up finding a friend of a friend of a friend. I didn't even know who was coming. I didn't even know what his job was. He just worked with tires and somebody recommended him and I didn't care at this point. It was getting dark. So he came, he had like this tow truck looking vehicle. I was on the phone with my mom for safety, took a picture of his license and, just in case, trying to take some safety precautions. And he said, just so you know, now that we got your tire off, you can drive it. Just don't go over 45. We'll follow you. So I'm driving the RV down the road with 3 wheels. I'm sure people were taking pictures like, what is that lady doing? She's missing a wheel. And we got to where we were going. And our harvest host was so nice to let us stay 4 extra nights for free. They invited us for wine and dinner every night. And, they even gave us a gift when we left. I felt like I should be paying them instead of them giving us stuff. But that's what I really want to offer in the membership. Is just that support, that community where if you have a question of no question is too dumb because everybody has to start and everybody's going to be at a different place in their journey. So how do I hook up my RV? It's hard at first, but once you do it, my 9-year-old can do it. In my membership, my 9-year-old I'm driving the truck and my 9-year-old is hooking up my trailer. And so if a 9-year-old can do it from practice, I know that any of my RV women and mamas out there can do it. But it helps to have that support. It helps to have somebody that you can really reach out to. Some people might prefer one-on-one coaching, like you said. I have a client on Monday that I used to know through the homeschooling community, and she saw what I was doing in my Facebook group. And she's like, what are you doing? And I told her, and she said, I want to do that with my kids. And I literally almost jumped up and down for joy, not because I had another coaching client, but because it was somebody that got it. They got what she could do with her kids. She said, I have 2 years left with my kids. I homeschool my kids and I don't want this journey to end and I don't want them to leave stuck on my husband's schedule. She said, we camp because I've met them at Yogi Bears and other places. She said, but I do the indoor stuff and my husband does the outdoor stuff. And that's something that you'll really hear commonly with RVing. And it's just a reality. It's not meant to be genderish or whatever the word is, but that's just kind of a reality of it. Oftentimes the women will take care of the inside when it's time to pack up and get ready, and the men will do the outside. And I want to flip that. I want to change that and let the women know you can do all of it. Your kids can do the inside. Your kids can do the outside. You can do it. So she has the same truck and a little bit smaller trailer than I do. And we're going to spend about 2 hours. The coaching sessions are about 2 hours at a time, learning just whatever you specifically need tailored to the spot you are in your RVing journey, but to get you on the road so that after those sessions, you can just go. You can book a trip the next week and say, come on, kids, let's go. We're going to do this. And it's going to be a little scary at first, but the whole point is to give you confidence, to give you knowledge, to give you the skills that you need, and to have somebody behind the scenes cheering you on, helping you out within that community. So I also have coursework. That's the third component, community, coursework, or coaching. You can do some of it. You can do all of it wherever you're at in your journey. But the coursework is a lot. It's not completed yet, but there's definitely coursework in there. But it's about 22 pages of different tips and tricks and things that you might encounter when you are out there trying to RV on your own. And it's going to be curated in an order where you can jump in at any spot. So if you already know how to hook up your RV, but you're not confident driving, or now you can drive, but you're like, how do I do the sewer tanks? Oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And by the way, if you've changed a diaper, you can do your sewer tanks. I promise it's less dirty than that. So, that's what you can really get in the coursework. If you're the type of person that is just like, I just want to jump in and find it, you'll be able to have that option as well.
Awesome. What I'm hearing from your story is that there's a lot of time freedom. And that was that was the most important thing when we were on our debt-free journey. I was working in this sales position that on paper, it looked like the most beautiful, coveted job ever because it was a business development manager for, a sales company, and I had the best boss, and it was a nice commission structure. But then the hard part was it was taking me away a lot from my family because there was events at night that I would have to go to, and weekend events and so forth. And so when we were on our debt-free journey, the most important thing to me was making sure that I was spending time with Brandon because he was entering into high school. And I wanted to know that we spent those years together, not coming home at night saying, good night, babe, have a great night's sleep. And then in the morning, seeing him go after, going off to school. And then on the weekends, I was working. And so with your story, it's like you're making so many memories with your kids that it's going to last a lifetime, not only for you, but for them as well. They're going to know that mom was there for me when I had my dance competitions, when we were looking at colleges together, doing all the fun activities, mountain biking and going to different places. Like, how many people would love to travel to all the different states in the United States alone? And they can do that with RVing, which is so much cheaper than going to a hotel, paying for flights, renting a car, and all the other things that come with it. So I just love how you've put this community together and you're actually going out there and teaching people, saying, I'm a mom. I'm doing this by myself. If you're a mom and you can change a baby's diaper, you can surely change a tire and do this too.
It's so true. And my kids could literally write a book of all of our memories. It's actually, if they're not on their phones while I'm driving, because they know that's the only time they get with it, they're just telling stories about places we've been as we're passing through. And I've taken them everywhere from Colorado, north and south, and all the way west, every state, except for Oregon and Washington. So that's on our list for this summer. But we'll have all those stickers filled in and the RV map. And then last summer, I decided I wanted to take them to the Outer Banks because I had seen movies, some of the Nicholas Sparks movies. And I said, when I was younger, and I thought, I want to go to the Outer Banks. So it was 24 hours with no stops. So that in RV time, because I don't drive over 65 and getting gas and everything is just slower. You have to find a place you can pull in and pull out. It took me 4 days. And that was just traveling by myself with the kids. So we had many stops in between. We went to Atlanta Braves games. We stayed in Atlanta, Kentucky, North Carolina, South Carolina. We went to the beach. We went to every lake you could imagine in South Carolina. And then we went to the beach at the Outer Banks. And then we drove home. We stayed in Kansas and Missouri and saw the arches. And we just kind of wing it. There's two different ways that you can go, and it really just depends on your personality. But people will scare you away and say, oh, you have to plan for RVing months out and years out. I promise you don't, and you'll hear it 1,000 times that you do, but you don't, because we don't. But I'm very capable and know how to help people that want to do that, because a lot of people do. They have jobs and they have schedules, and that's their personality. They want to know this is new for them. They don't want to just wing it. But the kids and I are so comfortable with it. Like, we'll literally book Yogi Bears a day out on our way to Kansas, and then we'll stay 2 extra days. And all the people around us were like, we had to book this spot a year ago. And I'm like, shh, don't tell them. We just booked it 2 hours ago on the way in. And so it's for all personalities. Whatever fits your boat, you can do it. And we've saved so much money. The reason why we chose the Outer Banks last year is because Brandon, I know, I love that you have a Brandon too, got $2,500 in film scholarships at Bob Jones University, which is in South Carolina. I could not. I know, it was so exciting, but I couldn't go pay for 5 of us to fly out there to stay in a hotel for a week, to get a rental car. It just wasn't feasible. So we just turned it into a summer-long trip. I always take the kids the whole summer. The day baseball ends, because that's our last sport, I take them. We're out of there the next day, and we come back, whether it's 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, however long that may be when baseball's done. So this summer, we left the day after baseball. We did that whole trip. And then we went camping every single weekend we got back, from August until the end of October. So I went to South Dakota for a girls' trip. We stayed down at a winery in Canyon City that was a harvest toast. I mean, I lost track of how many, maybe 40 plus campgrounds just last summer. And the kids, they'll tell other people. They don't always tell me that they're grateful, but I heard from my daughter's dance teacher when we went in for a solo private during COVID. She said, did Amanda tell you that she based her entire solo and the meaning of it and everything that empowered her to do this solo from all the trips that you take them on? I almost started crying. I'm like, no, she doesn't tell me that.
Wow.
So it means a lot to them, even if they don't tell you now. And it's just something that you're never going to get that time back. It's never too late to start. You could start at any age. I was just at a brunch with a bunch of girl campers this weekend, and there was a 20-ish girl across from me. And I said, where do you live? And she said, in my RV. I was thinking state, but in my RV works. And she said, I full-time. I have an address in Montana. I came from Florida. I'm going to New Mexico in a month. And she said, I'm young. She goes, why wouldn't I do it now? She goes, I work remote. And she goes, I full-time RV. And the one next to her said, well, I'm the glamping granny. That's what she called herself, the glamping granny. And she said, I just bought a Class B van. So a Class B van is one that you can drive. And it kind of looks like an amped up van. Like oftentimes it'll have an awning that will come out and the doors open out and steps, so, and she said, I absolutely love it. And I camp all the time. And you could go down the table and there were different ages, different stages of life. Some people single, some divorced, some never married, some with kids. So that's who I really want to reach. It's just women. And I am not opposed. I have a lot of men in my group that are interested as well. I welcome any man that wants to come join my group too. I promise you, I probably won't call everything by the right name. And the men are willing, or I encourage them to jump in and they can tell me what some of the things are called by the right name, but I know how it all works. And that's what matters. That's what matters is, can you do it? Can you get out on the road? Do you know your RV? Do you know how it works? And so that's what I'm so passionate about, teaching other women so that they can enjoy it themselves or enjoy it with their kids. Or you could be the one that takes your husband along when, he's like, oh, maybe I could try that.
Exactly. Yeah, that would be so much fun. And my main goal is to travel to every single state and eat the local food from every single state. I'm so looking forward to doing that. Well, I know you have a resource for our viewers. So tell us where we can find more about you, where they can get that free resource, and where they can watch your awesome videos that you have of yourself RVing with your kids.
Sure. And a lot of that is coming very soon on my website. We just spent a long time creating the videos and we'll be getting them up. But I have an ultimate guide to RVing solo or with your kids, and they can get that I'll give you the website now, but they can probably just click on the link as well. But it's https://. If you don't put that in and you just do the www, it doesn't take you there. I don't know why. www.RVMamaOf4.com. And then it's /RVing solo. So I know that was kind of a lot, but I'm sure people can click on that link in your description. And then I actually have a Facebook group that is free as well that you can come in, and we're very active, and you can chime in with any memories or tips that you may have or come and learn your own. And that is facebook.com/groups RVMamaOf4. And then if you want to look at my membership where you can really get the community, the coaching, or the courses, that is RVMamaOf4.com. And so I'll have all of that I'll give you as well. But there's definitely ways that you can RV on a budget. And I know we hit on some of them, but there are so many tips that I was able to use last summer. People ask me all the time, I think they think that we're made of money, and I'm really not. They just don't usually ask me how we pay for it because it's kind of an awkward discussion. But on Budget Divas, talking about money is not awkward, right? That's what you do. And so just some of the things that you could do is on your travel days, there's a lot of different places that you can stay. You can stay at a Walmart, and it's actually quite delightful. We always call ahead because some Walmarts won't let you stay if they have a smaller parking lot. So always call ahead and ask for the manager. Don't just get Joe Schmo at the sales checkout. But you can generally pretty much stay at most Walmarts, and you go to the back of the parking lot where the trees are and where nobody's parking. And it's just like a little campground back there. And you don't have to wake up at a certain time. You get up when you're ready and you pull out and leave. And we usually will buy groceries at Walmart to help support them. But other than a phone call ahead, that's all you have to do. You can do the same thing at Love's gas station. The Flying J, Pilot, they have those pretty much all across the country. You can do that at Cracker Barrel. Cracker Barrel is a little bit smaller, so my 35-foot RV is too big. But if you have a smaller RV, you can fit in there. So that's one way to really save on travel days. And then another thing that you can do is they have a lot of different camping memberships. You can, if you like your hookups, say you want to have your water, your sewer, and your electric, and you like you mentioned, you want to feel like you have the comforts of home. That's how I started. I did not start boondocking and having no hookups until this year. And I've been doing it 8 years. But you can do that as well. We joined the KOA. You have the value rewards that you can get, and you'll get a discount on every single night you stay. And then as you build up your points, you'll also get a free night. And then they also have free members nights every year. So there's several different ones that you can join that that you can find on my website. But there are just different memberships that you can really take advantage of and your travel days to when you get to where you're going, then you have a little more in your budget.
Yeah, we'll definitely need to bring you back on the show so you can talk more about those nitty-gritty details. But in the meantime, I would love for our viewers to head on to her website at RVMamaOf4.com. Did I say that right?
Yes, RVMamaOf4.com. That's it. Super easy.
And join her free Facebook group and check her out. And summer is coming up. So if you're looking to RV this summer when it's getting warmer and your kids are out of school, definitely a time to check her out and link up with her. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. And we'll definitely have you back to tell us more about all the details of RVing.
Thank you, Jen. I'd love to, because I have some special budgeting RV tips that we can talk about in the future that I think will really help people in setting a budget, planning a budget, and if you're actually over your budget, how do you adjust so that you're not over your budget? I don't do that too well in my real life. That's why I'm in Budget Divas, but I definitely do it with RVing because I know the tips and the tricks of how you can stay within that budget and plan ahead so that you're not getting in debt for your summer trips.
Awesome.